And subsequently, the single dropped down the charts, and Wire's chance to appear on Top of the Pops disappeared into the horizon. Um, Wire's place on said program was instead taken by, brace yourself, Donny and Marie Osmond, who were in London for a concert.
Christ. Hey, everybody out there. Welcome back to another episode of the Audiophiles. I'm Andy, that's John, and as we often do, always, we get together and exchange songs with one another, and then we discuss. John, it is your turn to offer up something for me to go off and listen to so we can come back and chop it up. Who's the artist? What's the track?
The artist is one you have reacted to or twice before, and that is the band Wire.
Wire. Okay. I remember Too Late that we did on this channel. What was the one that we did on Into the Music?
Kidney Bingos.
Kidney Bingos. How could I forget a name like that?
Do you remember the video with the meat and everything? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Which is funny because like once you said Kidney Bingos, all of the weird like butchery of awful came to my mind right when you said that because they kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, yeah. Well, the name of this track is
This track is Outdoor Miner, and this is the 7-inch version for those in the know.
okay. So that
So I will
suggests
explain
there are
later.
different. Okay, yeah. Of course you will. All right. Well, let me go off and listen to the 7-inch version of Outdoor Miner, as in one who plunders the earth or one who is not of a certain age.
One who was on strike in 1984, as opposed to one who sneaks in the off license for a can of Top Deck. No, that's legal. Some other shite. Red Stripe.
Okay, fair. Red stripe. All right. Well, let me go off and check this thing out, and I'll come back and let you know what I've made of it.
Okie dokie.
Those, I know this is like, what was it, 4 seconds into this, maybe 3 of what was really standing out to me, but that kind of choppy rhythm guitar and its tone reminded me a lot of Albert Hammond Jr. of the Strokes. And even when that bass made its way in there, that had a very Strokesy feel to me. Now I understand that what I'm alluding to came after this, probably. I'm not 100% certain, but from what I know, I can probably make a logical conclusion that that's the case. But nonetheless, I'm not doing this from a timeline standpoint. I'm doing this from my personal familiarity standpoint. And yeah, big fan of the Strokes. So when I hear something that reminds me of that, instantly my um, interest and attention are going to be captured, and thus they have been. So yeah, really enjoyed that right out of the gate. That's promising, right? Let's take it back and give it another go.
No blind spots in the leopard's eyes can only help to jeopardize the lives of lambs that shepherd cries.
Nice harmonies. Kind of rounds it off.
For a silverfish, eternal dust. Let's take a leash, than the clean room, a house guest way. He lies on his side as he trying to hide. In fact, it's the earth which is nonsense birth. He lies on his side as he trying to hide. In fact, it's the earth which is nonsense birth.
The chorus bit was a bit more airy, and his voice sounded softer, almost more melodic, which isn't a stark contrast, but it is just enough to, like I mentioned a moment ago, to kind of just round off the edges a little bit and give it this almost like buoyancy.
Face worker, a serpentine miner, a roof falls, an underliner of the roof structure, the egg timer.
Nice vocals, like harmonization.
Relies on his side as he tries to hide. In fact, it's the earth which is known since birth. Relies on his side as he tries to hide. In fact, it's the earth which is known since birth.
Keys. Oh, more of them. This too is buoyant. Nice vocalization. Yeah.
Relies on his side as he tries to hide. In fact, it's the earth which is known since birth. Relies on his side as he tries to hide. In fact, it's the earth which is known since birth. Relies on his side as he tries to hide. In fact,
Dueling
it's the
vocal.
earth which is known since birth. Relies on his side as he tries to hide. In fact, it's the earth which is known since birth. Relies on his side as he tries to hide. In fact, it's the earth
Like that.
which is known since birth. Relies on his side as he tries to hide. In fact, it's the earth which is known since birth. Relies on his side as he tries to hide. In fact, it's the earth which is known since birth.
Nice. Yeah, nice little fade out. That makes perfect sense. Yeah, this was. It started. It definitely didn't go the route that I thought it was going to go, and maybe for the moment hoped that it was going to go. But where it went ended up being quite a pleasant place. That very short intro bit was very strokesy to me, and even the way the bass kind of ushered in the rest of the music. But then it took on a bit of a different sound. Those harmonies were really airy and I'm not afraid to say very pretty sounding. And there was a lot of this lift as the song progressed. Whether it was through the harmonization or through the keys, it kind of like had this like lightness to it. Almost like it sucked the gravity out of the song and kind of like let it rise. And I thought that was really pretty sounding. Yeah, the well placed, judicious rolls on the drums throughout kept everything really interesting too. The bass work was fabulous. Yeah, I would kind of like hold this on the same level as Too Late, which it's been a while since we've done Wire on the channel, but yeah, I don't like this any far more like greater amount than I did that track. I think they're kind of like on the same playing field, but I'd like to know from a timeline standpoint where they fall um in sort of the oeuvre of the Wire. But yeah, really fun, interesting listen. I didn't catch a lot of the lyrics though. I did think that there was some allusion, right, to like a leopard or something like that, which makes perfect sense when you look at the thumbnail here. Uh and there's this like repeating like he lies on his side, that whole bit there. I'm wondering what the significance is of that, because I'm not gonna lie, I didn't catch much of the lyrics outside of that because I just got caught up in the music. Like it was very light and airy, and it just kind of consumed me. But yeah, I'm sure John can cross some T's and dot some I's when it comes to making sense of all of this from a lyrical standpoint. I'm sure he's got plenty of information about that. My aforementioned questions about the timeline of all of this and where it falls. So let's get back to him and have him add it all up.
Eddie Waring's up and under. He's back. So you've had listened to Outdoor Miner, 7-inch version, mind you, by Wire. What do you reckon?
Oh, I reckon you throw me another short little ditty here. But that was no real detriment to my enjoyment of the track. The song begins with some like lightly choppy guitar chords that have a tone that's really familiar to me, and I think that's because it's really reminding me of the tone and style. And this is like fucking 4 seconds that this is, but it struck me instantly. It sounds a lot like Albert Hammond Jr. of the Strokes. It has that kind of quality to the sound and the just that style that I would hear in a lot of the especially earlier Stroke stuff. Um, so needless to say, I'm on board right from the word go. And this stands alone only but for a few seconds, like I mentioned. But there's a little bass noodle that joins and ushers in with it the rest of the band, including the lead vocalist and the first verse. And the singer delivers the first like stanza and is then joined by some really lush harmonies that kind of help round off the they're not jagged, but the slight edges that existed before they appeared. So I really liked that, and that helped add a little zhuzh to the song. Um, and the next stanza, the lyrics begin, and it's punctuated by some nice but simple notes on like what sound like the keys that I'm hearing. And what I believe is the chorus begins, and the vocal delivery and music takes on a lighter sound that has this almost airiness to it. As the singer delivers the refrain, he lies on his side. Is he trying to hide? I think. Uh, in fact, it's the earth which he's known since birth. And this is the only bit of lyrics that I really catch in the song because so much of the rest of my time, which was pretty brief, given the length of the song, was focused on the tones of this, which I really did enjoy a lot, and the slight changes in them throughout bits of the song. Um, and there's also, I think, save for one point where I think he made an allusion to a leopard, I think. And there's also that obviously checks out given the thumbnail that I had to focus on as the song unfolded. Um, I'm not sure what exactly the narrative is here. Obviously, if I didn't catch most of the lyrics, but the vocals sound great,
You
and
won't
they
get
are
it. You honestly, you wouldn't get it in a month of Sundays.
great. Well, then I'm glad I didn't invest 2.5 minutes
Yeah.
on a Saturday to listen to it, but or to focus too much on them. So they're these really the vocals that sound great. They're complemented by these little bits of like tinkling key work that's happening along with him, and I really love that as like subtle and simple as that is. The key work carries the baton for a bit after the vocals cut out, though in short order the vocals return, but this time in the form of like vocalized airy like oohs, this sort of vocalization, this vowel vocalization that's happening that lightly soar over the key work. And all of it works together to create a very pretty sound. And another chorus follows with that repeating refrain I mentioned earlier, that lyrical refrain that I mentioned earlier. But as it continues, a second vocal track is layered along with it, creating these dueling vocal lines that mesh together really, really well. And the drums add these like well-placed rolls and fills beneath the surface, keeping the rhythm moving, and all of it, several different aspects of the song, but particularly like the rhythms in this point, have this buoyant kind of feel to it, like it lifts you, or like it sucks the gravity out of the room, and you're thus lifted off the ground. There's something about different aspects of the song throughout its short existence, that playing existence, that you feel this, or that at least I recognize this, and I thought that was an interesting attribute for such a short song. Yeah, I really enjoyed this little ditty. I should say that it's sort of this bit there at the end kind of continues until it fades to its completion. But yeah, I did really enjoy it. I would say that it's on par with what I heard in Too Late as far as like my enjoyment of it, and both of them I think are slightly ahead of Kidney Bingo, which, came with that very odd video that threw me for a loop, and that's probably on me for not divorcing visuals from the audio. But I definitely would say that I liked this just as much as I liked Too Late. But tell me more about this tune and kind of like now that we're 3 tracks deep into this band, like where on the timeline this kind of fits into the puzzle.
This is what is so impressive about Wire, because they have so many different sounds to their
Yeah.
sort of arsenal. But and I mean, it really does really go from the first iteration when they broke up in the early '80s and then got back together and embraced electronica and went on from there. But got to remember, 1977, they bring out Pink Flag, one punk album. God knows how many tracks are on there, and it still only lasts about half an hour, the whole thing. And it's fantastic. And then almost immediately, they bring out the second album, Chairs Missing, with such an array of different styles on here. So this is from the same album as Too Late.
Oh, really?
And they couldn't sound more different, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I assumed that one predated the other. That's really interesting that they put out one album. Usually, obviously, the idea is like album to album bands can reinvent themselves and tap into different sounds. To kind of do a bunch of different stuff on one album is a bit risky, but really interesting decision to make.
Yeah, really. Those first 3 albums are just so seminal, and I'm really held in high regard as well. 154 being the third one, and if you take them all together, I mean, obviously we've got people comment on this sometimes in the comment section about our opening title music, saying it's a shame it's not the original, and I think I've replied many times before that it is both Wire and also Elastica, and the first 4 or 5 seconds is the original song, which Elastica's song is then based on, and I spliced them together. So you got that, and you say this is from Chairs Missing, and Too Late is actually the closing track of that album. But I mean, that album, the tracks on some of the tracks on that are just amazing. You got this weird, almost manic, obsessive OCD kind of thing called Practice Makes Perfect. There's, can you imagine from them a song that's called French Film Blurred? You can immediately picture how off the wall that is. Yeah, and there's I'm the Fly, which I'll touch on in a second. I mean, there's loads of them. Really, really fantastic stuff. So, yeah, second album, 1978, Chairs Missing, their song. Personnel. Sorry, we have referenced that we've covered Wire before, and it's the music, and then it goes, and Too Late, which we did back in November. Playlist, you can go and check them out, a bit more about the band, how they formed, and all that stuff in their career. We'll just concentrate on this for this episode. So, personnel, the wonderful Colin Newman on guitars and vocal, Graham Lewis, bass guitar vocals, Bruce Gilbert guitars, Robert Gotobed drums, and for this track only, Mike Thorne piano. So the song is based on Graham Lewis's fascination with the serpentine leaf miner insect, and it details the life cycle of said insects. That is what the song is about.
Jesus Christ. Well, what the fuck does a leopard have to do with it? Okay.
EMI eagerly recognized that this song could potentially be a hit single. I mean, probably the only time in Wire's career. I mean, I'd say Kidney Bingos is probably the second most marketable song that they ever produced, and this is definitely that most. But they were concerned that the original album version was too short, as it only measured 1 minute and 45 seconds. So unusually, because they knew what answer they'd normally get, the record label did ask the group to make a longer version for a single. They added an extra verse and chorus, plus a piano solo played by the producer, Mike Thorne, pushing the length to a whopping 2 minutes, 51 seconds. Part of their manifesto when they got together, Wire, is they said no guitar solos. So the piano solo snuck in just under the rule, limboing in on our technicality. EMI were confident that the song could be a hit and a commercial breakthrough for Wire. This is your big moment, boys. So the single entered the charts at number 51. And the BBC approached EMI and asked them if Wire would appear on Top of the Pops if the single continued to rise in sales. And they were rubbing their hands thinking it's time to get them out to the masses. At the time, Top of Pops was the leading music program in the UK, 50 million viewers a week from an island nation that probably had a 50 million population tops. That's quite something, you know. So, however, the British Market Research Bureau, who compiled the UK singles chart, claimed that there was an attempt to rig the chart by EMI personnel buying multiple copies of the single in chart return shops. Although EMI strenuously denied all attempts at rigging the chart, that week's sales were not included. And despite selling twice as many copies as the previous week, these sales weren't included either. And subsequently, the single dropped down the charts, and Wire's chance to appear on Top of the Pops disappeared into the horizon. Wire's place on said program was instead taken by, brace yourself, Donny and Marie Osmond, who were in London for a concert. I have to say,
What a horrible decision that was.
There is a really quite a special period from about 1978 to about 1981, 82 tops, where Top of the Pops was this very strange beast that would have, you know, old-fashioned. The charts were just so varied. You would get post-punk and sort of punk-type songs in there, the beginnings, I guess, of hip-hop as well, alongside sort of standard, almost ballads and real old-fashioned stuff and disco and all sorts in one program. Sometimes it was quite stupendous, watch all these different acts, and you would get, not necessarily, but something like Wire, or, you know, the Clash never played the Pistols, probably a band, but someone like that, Stranglers, and then next to it you would get the Osmonds, or you would get, you know,
that's jarring.
Some other shit like that. It's just amazing. It's so odd. It really is. It was great. It was great. And really enjoyable. So yeah, that's how now this I didn't write this down, but I mean, attempts at chart rigging, I think, were legion back in those days, and I think 90% of the time they got away with it. They knew which. There's only certain record shops that counted the figures, so they knew which ones they were, and suddenly there'd be a spike in a certain thing that didn't sell anywhere else in the country. Back then, sort of EPOS didn't exist, and the computerized, you know, tills, so it was taken on sales receipts very locally, and then extrapolated, and that was the chart. So of course you could. Really interesting. I found this thing here, reviewing the single for the NME, and I don't normally do this, but there is a reviewer called Charles Shah Murray, and he wrote what he thought was a very witty review for this. He said, "This record is white and shows the dirt. Its surface is injured but rarely hurt. Guitars twang, keyboards ching, a voice in tones. It is 3:55, your reviewer groans. It sounds soft and squishy, I can't hear the words. Time passes, how absurd. This group are overrated, your correspondent demurs. Sod it, I'm bored." So that's his review. Get to more on that later. We'll get to the lyrics. So, and I have some little annotated notes that may help a little bit. The one thing about Wire is, above all, my mate pointed this out many moons ago, they're artists.
Yeah.
So sometimes you just can't make any fucking sense to them. So no blind spots in the leopard's eyes. That's why it's on the cover. Can only help to jeopardize the lives of lambs, the shepherd cries. An outdoor life for a silverfish, eternal dust, less ticklish than the clean room a house guest's wish. He lies on his side, is he trying to hide? In fact, it's the earth, which he's known since birth. He lies on his side, is he trying to hide? In fact, it's the earth, which he's known since birth. Face worker, a serpentine miner. A roof falls, an underliner. Of leaf structure, the egg timer. He lies on his side, is he trying to hide? In fact, it's the earth, and he's known since birth. He lies on his side, is he trying to hide? In fact, it's the earth, he's known since birth. Piano solo. And then back it comes in. He lies on his side, is he trying to hide? In fact, it's the earth, he's known since birth. He lies on his side, is he trying to hide? In fact, it's the earth, he's known since birth. He lies on his side, is he trying to hide? He lies on his side. In fact, it's the earth, he's known since birth. Is he trying to hide? And that repeats until fate. So yeah, the notes from certain contributors on the lyric site that I got this from put in some bit. I think some of these are funny and entertaining, so I wouldn't spare you them. So they put for the first bit, a leopard, the leopard's eyes. A leopard has full frontal vision and thus misses nothing. The lamb, trying to hide in plain vision, is sure to be caught. This song may be a metaphor relating to just how plain it is that a lazy person is obviously going to be spotted for their apathy and eventually ousted from the house, going to have to look for prospects elsewhere. um, to the lyric that starts an outdoor life for a silverfish, and they put here Lepisma sacharina prefer to live indoors and will in fact infiltrate your books if given free rein. That's your silverfish. Face worker. So the concept of face, this is quite interesting, in communication was introduced by sociologist Irving Goffman in 1955. Face refers to the image of self, which one projects to others in a communicative setting. While it does encompass physical appearance to a degree, face in the sociological sense is more about a person's behavior and how his or her values drive it or appear to drive it. Face work was a term Goffman coined to refer to communicative actions geared towards maintaining or improving one's face. The idiom save face, which I thought was really old, actually, which refers to the act of recovering from some embarrassment, owes its origin to this concept.
Yeah, that's
Here
what
it's
I was
been
starting to
invoked.
think that about a sentence or two before you got to it. So I was like, oh, this totally checks out.
Yeah. Here it's been invoked to reference how this tiny larva constructs its own outward identity by chowing down on leafy plant matter until it eventually metamorphoses into a fly. Um, and also, to explain, if you don't know, we just reference a serpentine minor. Um, uh, of leaf structure, the ectoma. And it says here the serpentine leaf miner is the larvae of a type of fly and is known to burrow through leaves, hence its name. Ectoma relates to the eventual metamorphosis happening.
Right.
And funny enough, on the album, the very next song is called I Am the Fly.
Ooh.
So the serpentine miner has become a leaf miner fly. So it's really interesting here. Outdoor Miner, as I've said, was the closest that Wire got to a hit single during their first iteration. Lead guitarist Bruce Gilbert famously despised the finished song to the point of leaving the stage entirely before the remaining three members performed it in concert, only returning after it was finished. A little bit extreme.
Jesus.
By the time they began their autumn 1978 tour, remember this came out in 1978. By the autumn, by they were touring, supporting the album, Outdoor Miner had been removed from the band's live set entirely. So they didn't even bother playing it because he sucked. That's odd from one of your own songs. I fucking hate that song that we nearly got a hit with. Outdoor Miner
That
has been
happens more
covered.
than you think, though, doesn't it? Like I've heard of other bands that are just like won't touch certain hits that they've had. I mean, Creep and Radiohead come to mind instantly.
But this wasn't a hit. It wasn't like everywhere they took it's being played.
The closest thing they got to a hit, maybe, as far as the marketability that you alluded to earlier. But like maybe apples to oranges there.
Outdoor Miner has been covered by several artists. Notable versions are done by bands including Lush, Flying Saucer Attack, and the Lightning Seeds, and Luna. In a unique move, a tribute album to the song was released in 2004 on the 25th anniversary of the song. And the album's called A House Guest's Wish, translations of Wire's Outdoor Miner, and features 19 different interpretations of the song.
Jesus.
And just to catch up with our reviewer from earlier, like many music journalists, Charles Shaw Murray sang, played guitar and harmonica in a band that went nowhere. Naturally, that has never affected his opinions or judgment in the famously fair and balanced British music press. Wire, however, went on to release a further 15 studio albums and are widely seen as one of the most influential bands of all time. So shove that up your ass. So yeah, there you go. Like the song? a brief little glimpse into it, but I think it's a really interesting. The Wire is such an interesting band. And even when they miss, they're interesting, and they certainly didn't miss in this case. And it's a beautiful song, and they can be um, able to create such beauty in their music, as well as sometimes being quite brutal as well, and
Yeah.
deliberately ugly. And that's just such an interesting aspect to them and their approach. But this is a Bobby Dazzler, as I thought, to use a certain phrase. So yeah, I thought you'd get a kick out of it, and it's just a bit different, and this is definitely the better version than the 1 minute, 30 self.
Yeah. I think what's
Definitely.
funny about this from my perspective is that many times you'll give me a song and I'll like it, and then we'll talk about it. And then with the added context and sort of clarity that you provide, I get more of a liking for it. And while I haven't lost any of the liking that I have for the song, all the clarity that I just alluded to and the added context fucking out the window. I'm left more baffled and confused about my own feelings than I was after I had just heard the song because of all this the oddity behind it all, which I guess is a way of illustrating what eccentric
Yeah.
folks were as a group. So, hey, that makes me kind of enjoy it a little bit more, but also kind of scratch my fucking head. So, yeah, interesting
Yeah.
track for sure, John.
Yeah. Eccentric is the word. Yeah, and British. Yeah, definitely. Brilliant. Okay, I'll wrap things up. Thanks for listening to this, Andy.
Yeah, thank you.
Folks out there, tell us what you think. You're a fan of this song? Perhaps you prefer the original. You crazy, crazy fool. Please do hit the like button if you like this, and drop some comments. We'd love to hear from you. I'm a big fan of Wire, and they do miss, but when they hit big, and I love most of their work. So yeah, love to hear from you. If you haven't subscribed already, what the hell is stopping you after having a song about the life cycle of a larvae? I mean, what more do you want, folks? We do appreciate everybody who does support the channel, and we're slowly creeping up in numbers. And yeah, thanks to all who does. So yeah, hop on board. That being said, thanks again so much for watching, and we'll see all of you on the next episode of the Audiophiles.
See you later, guys.